for a second, but I'm going to eat something.
Good to see you, Baruch.
Likewise.
It's better to see you than see me. I see me. Okay. All right, good Tvach. I heard a parable from Rabbi Zalman Shmukler, Eingesund, a long time ago, and I thought it was a fascinating parable, but I didn't know if it was really authentic or if it's just, a way he looked at things. Chayla. So he told me the following parable. A father has two children. One child calls the father every single day. It's an obedient, wonderful child. Every day he's calling his father. And the other child, we can hear you, the other child only calls his father once in a blue moon, once when things are going rough. That's when he calls, please stop, please stop. Once in a blue moon. And one day, the father's talking to his child, who was very, very obedient, very devoted. And middle while he's talking to, let's call him Ruvain, while talking to Ruvain, Shimon, who always is doing things he shouldn't be doing, always playing around, Shimon calls him up. And the father says to Reuben, I got to get the call. Shimon's calling. And Reuben's like, is that fair? Is that fair? I'm in the middle of speaking to you and going to answer Shimon's call? I always call you every day. So the father said to Shimon, he said to Reuben, you don't understand. Shimon never calls me. If Shimon's calling me, I got to pay attention to that. Shimon is calling me. I got to pay attention. This is something special. He doesn't call so often. If he's calling, I got to pay attention. So Meshmuka was saying that if someone davens to Hashem every day, of course, it's precious to Hashem if you daven to Hashem every day. But if someone never davens, and then all of a sudden they daven, Hashem makes special attention, it's received by Hashem, a different kind of pleasure. That's what he said. And I don't know if you remember, but Rose, you for sure remember, right? Remember the story of the Mittler Rebbe's dream? So this coming week, Chavdal Tevis, is the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit. And the Alter Rebbe, everyone's called Alter Rebbe Aish Ploy, a wondrous person, because of the incredible amount of Chayil, you're shaking the table, please stop it. The incredible amount of torah that is he revealed both in the Gemara and Shulchan Aruch and in all areas of Torah. The Alter Rebbe revealed so many different things, and yet the Alter Rebbe's main accomplishment, the Rebbe said, was his Bali Teshuvah. His main accomplishment was that he caused people to do Teshuvah and closer to Hashem. So what motivated him to do Teshuvah? What motivated him was a story that he heard from the Mizitcha Maggid. What was the story about? Is exactly the same story they heard from Rabbi Shmukler. About a king who had two sons, and one son always was close to him, and one son rebelled against him, and then he only visited him, the king gave up. You heard that story, right? Say bracha, it's Rosie. Okay, good. So when this son who rebelled against the king came back to the king had a unique pleasure from him, more pleasure than he had from his son who was always with him. So the Alter Rebbe said that once he heard the story from the Mizitcha Maggid, that was like a life-altering moment. That made him focus on trying to bring people to Teshuvah. On that theme, God willing, we're going to see the Living Torah tonight is on that theme as well. And this is, of course, connected to the yards of the Alter Rebbe. But what I wanted to share with you tonight is an incredible account the previous Rebbe heard from Rabbi Yossi Jacobson's great-grandfather, Gershon Ber Pahar. Chayla, please. An incredible account that the previous Rebbe said, I heard many, many things from many, many chassidim, and I heard many things from my father. But the thing that he heard, the teachings that he heard from this chassid, he said it made a different kind of impact, different kind of impression on him. And he writes in his diary how old he was, how he's 17 years old, in this amount of days, when he heard this teaching from Reb Gershon Ber. So I'm going to share with you this teaching, this account, with all of its details. Something truly incredible, which teaches us so many different things, and just it brings us to a little bit of the air of Gan Eden. When people talk about being in the air of Gan Eden, you're going to come with me to hear this incredible story of Reb Gershon Ber. And you're going to come with me to a visit to Oil Mayetzira, a visit to Gan Eden. Listen to this story. Unbelievable. Here, Zalman, you can sit over here. Zalman. Either sit or go. Choose. So, sorry about that. Okay. So the Reb Gershon Ber was a chassid who had seen chassidim from the time of the Alter Rebbe, and he was already an old man in the time when the Friedrich Rebbe was 17 years old. And the Rebbe Cashapp told the Friedrich Rebbe that he should spend time with him. He's going to visit the city of Lubavitch, and he should make sure to spend time with the Gershon Ber and hear things from the Gershon Ber. So the Gershon Ber told the previous Rebbe, among many other things, that there's a teaching from the Baal Shem Tov on the pasuk, "Va'amechum tzadikim." All the Jewish people are called tzadikim, and they will inherit the land. That's what the pasuk says. The Jewish people are called tzadikim, and they will inherit the land. So the Baal Shem Tov said, the Jewish people are called tzadikim. Which people? People who are simple people, who just spend a lot of time doing business, and they travel around different cities doing business, and they spend time in the courts of the nobility, and they mention the name of God wherever they are, wherever they go, and they devote their resources to helping people and to learning Torah. They will inherit the land. They'll inherit this land, this world, because they make this world a place where God's presence is felt. So, because they are using God's name and mentioning God's name wherever they are, and because they use give tzedakah, and because wherever they are, they talk about Hashem, they change something in this world. And the Baal Shem Tov taught about how precious simple people are, who, though they don't know a lot of Torah. And Reb Gershon Ber said that he saw the way Chassidim in his town conducted themselves. He saw how much love they had for each other, how much respect they had for each other. Even for the most unlettered and unscholarly people were treated with the same love and respect and attention. He mentioned like this. He mentioned that he visited the city of Lubavitch, and what happened was that the older Chassidim, whenever someone visited the city of Lubavitch, when they came back, they would make a special welcome for them, where everyone would share what they had heard in the city of Lubavitch. He said that there was a chassid named Shlomo the coachman, the Shlomo the Bal Hagala, who didn't know any Torah. He didn't know, he barely knew how to read. But he was a very pious person. Every night he would say Tikkun Chatzos. He would say the special prayer that people say to ask Hashem to end the exile, to bring Mashiach. And Shlomo would say Tikkun Chatzos, and afterwards he would say the entire book of Tehillim. But he didn't know anything of Torah. In fact, the previous Rebbe says he didn't even know the meaning of the bracha of Hamaitzi. You know what Hamaitzi means, Rosie? You know what Hamaitzi means, right? He didn't know the meaning of the bracha of Hamaitzi. And yet, when Shlomo came back from the city of Lubavitch, what does it mean, Rosie?
It means
Yeah, you could have said.
so basically it grows from the ground. First it just starts off as a wheat, and it gets baked into challah.
Right, Hashem makes challah out of the ground, out of the wheat. Very good, Rosie. So Shlomo didn't know that. And when Shlomo came back from the city of Lubavitch, together with other chassidim, so some chassidim knew all the teachings that the Rebbe had shared. Shlomo would share whatever he saw, whatever he knew, and all of them respected each other, and they all listened. They all would travel in the cold, in the snow, to come hear what Shlomo had to share from the city of Lubavitch, what he had heard, what he had seen. That's how much respect and care they had for each other. They all would come together to hear someone had come from the city of Lubavitch. Rabbi Yitzchak Shol was an old man who had lived in this city, and he had seen the Chassidim of the Mzitcha Magid and the Baal Shem Tov, and he said that the Alter Rebbe merited among all the students of the Magid. When the Magid passed away, they all took a part in the burial of the Magid and in the Tara and the ritual purification is done to a body. The Alter Rebbe merited to have the schus to purify the head of the Mzitcha Magid. So the chassid of Chaim of Rodnia, he said that when a chassid comes back from a tzaddik, he brings with him the light of the tzaddik. But there are different parts of the light of the tzaddik. There is a more, the realm, the aura of the tzaddik, and the real goal is to bring, not just to bring the aura of the light of the tzaddik, but to internalize it. So he said that the Alter Rebbe was unique among all the students of the Maggid, all other students of the Mzitcha Maggid. He was unique in that his path was with Chochmah Bina V'das. He gave us a perspective, way to look at the Torah in a meaningful way that affects our heart and affects our character. And that's why he merited to purify the head of the Mzitcha Maggid, because he was about the mind. He was about giving us a different, deep perspective to look at the world, look at Torah, and look at ourselves. So when the chassid comes back from the city of Lubavitch, he shouldn't just share the aura. He has to share the teachings. And Shabbat Ber said, when I visited the city of Lubavitch, even though the chassidim had already prepared a special welcome for all those that had been there, for me they made a special welcome. I was younger than everybody else, but the chassidim would have such love for each other, even and especially for the younger ones. They gave him attention and love and care and affection, and they prepared a place for me. He said, I should have a time to share what I had seen. And I repeated, he said, on a Thursday night of Parshas Vayechi, like this year, Thursday night, Parshas Chav Dal Tevis, that year was on a Friday. And the week before, on a Thursday night, he shared the teaching he had heard from the Rebbe Rashab. What was the teaching of the Rebbe Rashab about? It was a teaching on the pasuk, I will give you those who walk among the, Hashem says, I will give you the ability to walk among all the others who stand. The Rebbe Rashab said, there are some angels in heaven who may be very lofty and holy and full of love and reverence for Hashem, but overall, they're always in the same position. They're always in the same place. They never really advance. They never really change. The angel Michal has 186,000 angels in his camp, but they're all in the realm of, they have all certain way of serving Hashem, and they're called standing because they never really change. But in the merit of a soul coming to this world, a soul is able to achieve the ability to walk, meaning to advance spiritually and to go to a whole different plane than he was at before. And Rebbe Rashab went in detail discussing how every prayer that we say in Shachris and Mincha and Ma'ariv, and every time we say Shema before retiring, and every time that we engage with the physical world and elevate it, what kind of impact that has eternally in the world to come. So he repeated this teaching on Thursday night, and the Chassidim wanted to hear it again. He repeated it again. And the whole night, they said stories and insights and discussing the nuances of this discourse. And they spent Shabbos together. And the following Tuesday morning, they're in the middle of praying together. And while they're praying, they get a message from Reb Dov Ber, who was a grandson of this Yitzchak Shol that I mentioned, this old chassid. And he said, Reb Yitzchak Shol isn't doing well. So they quickly finished davening, and they went to the home of Yitzchak Shol, and they went to see how he's doing. They found him in his home, and by that time, Reb Lipa, the doctor, had administered some kind of medical procedure upon him, and he was feeling a little bit better. And they stayed with him, and Reb Yitzchak, I forgot to mention that over Shabbos, they asked Reb Gershon Dov to repeat the discourse on Friday night before Kabbalah Shabbos, like a Gavna. They asked him to repeat it again on Shabbos morning, the same discourse. They asked him again to repeat the same discourse again after Mincha, the same discourse that he heard from Rebbe Rashab. They had heard it already now 6 or 7 times. And when they visited Rabbi Yitzchak Shol, and they spent some time with him, he was doing a little better. So Rabbi Yitzchak Shol felt better. He davened, he studied, and he asked them to come again at night. They came back at night, this Tuesday night, and he was okay. They asked him to come back, and he asked for this discourse to be repeated again. Please repeat the discourse again. Repeated the discourse again. Then he asked all the chassidim to come back again on Wednesday night. They all came back on Wednesday night. When they came on Wednesday night, they spent some time with him, but as they're about to leave, he fainted. They tried to revive him, but he was really, really not doing well. And till about 11 o'clock, he was out. And finally, at 11 o'clock, he awoke. And when he awoke, he said, I have to travel home for Yomtov. They were a little bit alarmed because it sounded like he lost his mind. He sounded like he wasn't with it anymore. But his face looked so serene and so peaceful that they didn't think that he had lost his mind, but they wondered, what is he talking about? He has to travel home for Yomtov. What Yomtov is he talking about? Traveling home? Where is he going? What does he mean? And he asked the chassidim, what time is it? And is it daybreak already? And when they told him it's only 11 o'clock, he was satisfied. He calmed down. He said Shema in his melodious voice, and he went to sleep. He woke up at daybreak, and he told his grandson, Reb Dov Ber, that to give him a new shirt. He wanted to put a new shirt, a fresh new shirt. And he began to pray in the morning, but it was very hard for him to pray because he was so tired. So it took him a long time to pray. And he told his friend, Rabbi Yosef Dov, Yosef Sholem, please call my friends. Call my friends because I want to see them and part from them before I go home for Yomtov. So who were his friends? The older Chassidim, Reb Shaul Leib, Reb Peretz, Reb Chaim Elia. Call them. I'm going home for Yomtov. I want to see them before I go home for Yomtov. So when he finally finished davening, all the Chassidim had come. Not only the Chassidim that he had called, but a lot of Chassidim had joined and filled the home of Reb Dov Ber, the grandson of Yitzchak Shol. They all filled the home completely. And he said that I'm going home for Yomtov. And when Reb Shol came to the home and he heard him say this, he said, do you think you're going to make it home for Yomtov? He's the only one who understood what he was talking about. Do you think I'll make it home for Yomtov? And he says, certainly, I'm going home for Yomtov. But before I go home, I want to daven mincha. And he told Reb Shol, he says, you remember what we heard from the Alter Rebbe when he first came back to Liozna. We heard from, you remember 72 years ago, what we have heard from the Alter Rebbe about the prayer of mincha. And he wanted to put on his gartel and put on his hat before sharing the teaching of the Alter Rebbe, what the Alter Rebbe said about mincha that he had heard 72 years before. And he wanted to stand up. So he put on the gartel, he put on his hat, but he didn't have enough strength to stand up. And on his face, on his white face, there was red blotches from exerting himself. And he shared the teaching of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe said a teaching in the Gemara. The Gemara says a person should always be careful to recite the prayer of mincha. So the Alter Rebbe explained that the word of person, the word of man, a man it means the ability to have the control over your heart. The mind can control the heart. So the Alter Rebbe said a person, someone whose mind controls his heart, Zahir, this person shines. When does he shine? He shines through the prayer of mincha. Mincha is the middle of the day. Everything, you're busy with all kinds of things. And you break away, you daven mincha. This expresses the ability of the mind to control the heart. And this is how a person shines. He shines not just in the mincha itself, in the prayer of mincha, but in what mincha is about. The idea of breaking away and doing what Hashem wants us to do by your mind controlling your heart, that with that mincha-like devotion to Hashem, that brings out a certain light of the neshama. That's a teaching that he said. And then they're about to recite mincha, and he said, guys, please don't eulogize me. Tonight is the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. And I want to get through the river of fire. The Gemara says before when a person passes away, they go through a river of fire, whatever that means, in order to forget whatever they've seen in this world, to forget all the physicality and to become absorbed in the light of Hashem and Gan Eden. To become part of that world, you have to first go through what's called the river of fire. And he said, I want to be able to go through the river of fire and be already with the Alter Rebbe for Yomtov. I want to go home for Yomtov. Let's do this quickly. Please don't eulogize me. So that way I'll be able to go home for Yomtov. And sure enough, they begin davening mincha. And before they said the last Kaddish, Rabbi Shol announces Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He says the pasuk Shema Yisrael, and all those who are there repeat Baruch Shem Kfei Malchus Elam Va'ed. And then they said the various verses that are said when a person passes away: the Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokim, L'shon Haba B'Yerushalayim, Yim Maseiv Tzatzik HaParas, all different things a person says in confession. And there was a snowy day, it was icy, and it was very hard to begin the burial but the older Chassidim said we have to fulfill his last request. We have to make sure that he gets there for Yomtov. and they broke the ice, and they dug in the snow, and they managed to bury him. And his grandson, of course, led the prayers, as the halacha is. But in addition to his grandson saying Kaddish, also his good friends, Rabbi Moshe Levin and Rabbi Peretz Chaim, then Rabbi Elia, they also said Kaddish too. And Rabbi Gershon told the previous rabbi, he said, I could see when they're saying Kaddish, how they envied, they were jealous of this chassid, of the Yitzchak Shol, who was certainly already in Gan Eden with the Alter Rebbe. And I forgot to mention, the Yitzchak Shol told the Gershon Dov, after he repeated the discourse again and again, he repeated the discourse, he said, I'm going to send regards to your father, who had passed away, and tell me you're going in a good way. And this is, the previous Rebbe said that Rabbi Gershon Dov, when he said the story, he just broke out in tears, and it was raining outside when he shared the story with the previous Rebbe. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when he finished saying the story, and the previous Rebbe begged him not to go home, just to stay with the previous Rebbe in his room. And the previous Rebbe said how he was 17 years old, and he was 15 days, exactly how old he was, when he heard what Rabbi Gershon Dov had said. And the previous Rebbe said, I knew many chassidim, I heard many teachings from my father, but I never saw someone with such a humble spirit like Rabbi Gershon Dov. And Rabbi Gershon Dov then begins to cite the evening Shema, and he says the words, may it be Hashem's will, may it be Hashem's will that I never sin, never make again any mistakes. And the previous Rebbe describes how he cried bitterly saying those words. Anyway, the point is, not that we should cry bitterly, the point is that there's a big Yomtov this week, the Yomtov of Chavdal Tevis. God willing, we're going to be having a special speaker. Hopefully, actually, his grandson, Rabbi Jacobson, is going to be joining us this coming Thursday night. Gershon Ber Parar is a great-grandson. And to get ready for Yomtov, we got to go somewhere. We got to get ready to travel. I'm not saying passover, but to stay in this world. We have to get ready. Mashiach is coming. We have to get ready for Yomtov, get ready for Mashiach's coming, ready for the great day of Chodal Tevis by adding in reaching out to other people who may look like not important, simple people, but as the story of Zisha Magid, who does Hashem cherish? What gives Hashem a special nachas ruach, a special pleasure? Is specifically when someone never prays to Hashem, and we think that he doesn't know about this whole stuff. But on the contrary, when someone who never davened and suddenly turns to Hashem, that's a unique pleasure that Hashem has. And he hangs up all the other phones to pay attention to that. So therefore, it's really appropriate that we're going to watch tonight's Living Torah, which is on this theme about how precious it is to Hashem. We reach out to other Jews and bring them closer. Let's